Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. This is part 2 of the 2023-24 NBA season's preview and prediction show. This is superlatives. Best rookies, most improved, most disappointing, make or break, bounce back, comeback players, bold predictions, and maybe some Ewing theory stuff at the end as well. All right, let's get to it. Best rookies. Atlanta, Kobe Buffkin. Boston, Jordan Walsh. Brooklyn, Noah Clowney. Charlotte, Brandon Miller. Chicago, Julian Phillips. Cleveland, Imani Bates. Derek Lively Jr. Dallas. Denver, Jalen Pickett. Detroit, Austin Thompson. Golden State, Trace Jackson Davis. Houston, Amen Thompson. Indiana, Jarris Walker. Clippers, Kobe Brown. Lakers, Jalen Hood Schifino. Memphis, Gigi Jackson. Miami, Jaime Jaquez. Minnesota, Jalen Clark. New Orleans, Jordan Hawkins. Knicks, Jacob Toppin. Oklahoma City, Chet Holmgren. Orlando, Anthony Black. Philadelphia, Traquavion Smith. Portland, Scoot Henderson. Sacramento, Jalen Slauson. San Antonio, Victor Wembanyama. Toronto, Grady Dick. Utah, Keontae George. And Washington, Bilal Coulibaly. Phoenix doesn't have any rookies, amazingly enough. Most improved. Atlanta, Sadiq Bey. Boston, Peyton Pritchard. Brooklyn, Cam Johnson. Charlotte, PJ Washington. Chicago, Patrick Williams. Cleveland, Evan Mobley. Dallas, Jaden Hardy. Denver, Christian Braun. Detroit, Dave Ivey. Golden State, Jonathan Kuminga. Houston, Alperen Sengun. Indiana, Obi Toppin. Clippers, Terrence Mann. Lakers, Austin Reeves. Memphis, Jake LaRavia. Miami, Nikola Jovic. Minnesota, Naz Reid. New Orleans, Dyson Daniels. New York, Quentin Grimes. Oklahoma City, Josh Giddey. Orlando, Paolo Banchero. Philly, Tyrese Maxey. Phoenix, Josh Okogie. Portland, Shaedon Sharpe. Sacramento, Keegan Murray. San Antonio, Jeremy Schoen. Toronto, Scotty Barnes. Utah, Walker Kessler. And Washington, Corey Kispert. Most disappointing. Atlanta, Wesley Matthews. Boston, Kristaps Porzingis. Brooklyn, Spencer Dinwiddie. Charlotte, Terry Rozier. Chicago, Alex Caruso. Cleveland, Ricky Rubio. Dallas, Kyrie Irving. Detroit, Joe Harris. Denver, Reggie Jackson. Golden State, Draymond Green. Houston, Dillon Brooks. Indiana, Bruce Brown. Clippers, Russell Westbrook. Lakers, Rui Hachimura. Memphis, Marcus Smart. Miami, Kyle Lowry. Minnesota, Mike Conley. New Orleans, CJ McCollum. New York, Dante DiVincenzo. Oklahoma City, Davis Bertans. Orlando, Markelle Fultz. Philadelphia, Patrick Beverley. Phoenix, Eric Gordon. Portland, DeAndre Ayton. Sacramento, Harrison Barnes. San Antonio, Zach Collins. Toronto, Dennis Schroeder. Utah, Lauri Markkanen. And Washington, Jordan Poole. Make or break players. Atlanta, Jalen Johnson. Boston, Sam Hauser. Brooklyn, Ben Simmons. Charlotte, James Bouknight. Chicago, Kobe White. Cleveland, Isaac Okoro. Dallas, Josh Green. Denver, DeAndre Jordan. Detroit, James Wiseman. Golden State, Moses Moody. Houston, Jayshawn Tate. Indiana, Jalen Smith. Clippers, Amir Coffey. Lakers, Cam Reddish. Memphis, Zaire Williams. Miami, Duncan Robinson. Minnesota, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. New Orleans, Kira Lewis. New York, Dylan Windler. Oklahoma City, Alexej Pokusevski. Orlando, Jonathan Isaac. Philly, Mo Bamba. Phoenix, Keita Bates-Diop. Portland, Matisse Thybulle. Sacramento, Davion Mitchell. San Antonio, Sandro Mamushvili. Toronto, Malachi Flynn. Utah, Chris Dunn. And Washington, Johnny Davis. Bounce back, comeback players. Players coming off injury or players that are bouncing back from disappointing seasons. Atlanta, Bogdan Bogdanovic. Boston, Al Horford. Brooklyn, Dennis Smith Jr. Charlotte, Miles Bridges. Chicago, Nikola Vucevic. Cleveland, Jared Allen. Dallas, Seth Curry. Denver, Justin Holiday. Detroit, Cade Cunningham. Golden State, Andrew Wiggins. Houston, Aaron Holiday. Indianapolis, Buddy Hield. Clippers, Robert Covington. Lakers, Christian Wood. Memphis, Derrick Rose. Miami, Thomas Bryant. Minnesota, Rudy Gobert. New Orleans, Jonas Valanciunas. New York, Isaiah Hartenstein. Oklahoma City, Lou Dort. Orlando, Gary Harris. Phoenix, Danny Green. Or Philadelphia, Danny Green. Phoenix, Bradley Beal. Portland, Malcolm Brogdon. Sacramento, Chris Duarte. San Antonio, Devin Vassell. Toronto, Chris Boucher. Utah, John Collins. And Washington, Danilo Gallinari. And I'm going to say Boucher for Toronto, not Boucher. And bold predictions for each team, which is a ton of fun. The Atlanta Hawks. Trae Young averages over 30 points per game. I like this one a lot. I think that he'll be great for Quinn Snyder, and I think that he's going to get the ball on. The Boston Celtics. Joe Mazzulla will improve his with his new staff. I like this one, and I think that my high expectations for the Celtics reflects in them, as well as my Jason Tatum for MVP prediction. And I'm just going to give Brad Stevens in that front office a chance to for Joe Mazzulla to prove himself. The the Brooklyn Nets. Ben Simmons does not finish the season on the team. I don't know if that means he gets released, he gets traded, or he is bought out, or maybe he's like an injury done for the season doesn't qualify for that. But my prediction is that he will not be on the Brooklyn Nets to finish the season. Maybe he's actually decent and then they trade him. That could be the other option. But I think Ben Simmons is such a big wild card to this season, for good or for bad. Charlotte will trade Gordon Hayward to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Isaac Okoro, Karis LeVert, and a second-round pick. I think that the Cavs could use some more scoring. Max Strus to me is a bench player, and I'm not a big Okoro fan. Then I think they've been trying to deal LeVert for a while now, or maybe LeVert's bought out in this scenario, or they flip him again, or just keep him. But I like the idea of Hayward on the Cavs to go with the group they have. The Chicago Bulls will trade DeMar DeRozan to the Dallas Mavericks for 2027 and 2031 first-round picks and Josh Green. And those two picks, I think they'll take that for DeMar, because we don't know if Luka's going to be there in 2027, and he certainly, there's a possibility, very good possibility, he's not there in 2031. So if you're Chicago, take advantage of a desperate Mavericks team. The Cleveland Cavaliers. Evan Mobley averages 18, 12, 4, and 2. Which is 18 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 blocks. I think he's going to be really good this year, and I think that people are going to start realizing that this could be his team. The Dallas Mavericks. Kyrie Irving plays in less than 60 games. I mean, he's never healthy. I mean, what else is new with this guy? And, he just, like I said, he plays when he feels like it, and he sits when he feels like it, so why not? The Denver Nuggets. Christian Braun, 6th Man of the Year finalist. I like Christian Braun. He showed a lot of promise in Denver's run last season to the finals. And I think he'll prove to be a great find. The Detroit Pistons will trade Bojan Bogdanovic to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Kenrich Williams, Davis Bertans, 2024 first rounder with the Oklahoma City protections. Because there's a chance that pick goes to Indiana, but I'm saying it's their own pick. But the Thunder trade their protections, and they're going to go for it and get Bogdanovic. And I love that possible deal for OKC. They need another shooter that is a forward. The Golden State Warriors will acquire Alex Caruso from the Chicago Bulls for Brandon Podzinski, Dario Saric, and the 2026 first rounder. That's a lot for Caruso. I would not be shocked if that first rounder and that potential deal is a protected one, but to me, he's a guy that could swing somebody's fortunes. The Houston Rockets will trade Reggie Bullock to the Los Angeles Lakers for a 2030 second rounder. Bullock and the Lakers just makes sense. Houston's going to realize that they're not very good, and they'll trade not some big veterans, but like cheap veterans that, and I mean big in terms of big time, like Brooks and VanVleet. But like cheap veterans like Bullock, I can see on other teams, so it just makes sense for Bullock to be a 3-point guy off the bench for the Lakers. The Indiana Pacers acquire Danilo Gallinari from the Washington Wizards for a 2025 second rounder. I like that one. I think that Gallinari would be a good fit for the Pacers off the bench. And I know people are going to be coming with the jokes for that one. But I like the fit of Gallinari on Indiana. The Clippers will acquire Colin Sexton from the Utah Jazz for a 2028 lottery-protected first rounder. I think Colin Sexton's going to be really good for the Jazz this year, to the point where they could flip him. And I think that Sexton would be a nice young piece for the Clippers that could swing a game. The Lakers. Anthony Davis plays in more than 65 games. I'm being optimistic about Anthony Davis. I think they'll have 50 wins in the regular season. And part of that prediction is because I believe that Davis will be healthy most of the year, God willing. Because he was awesome in that playoff run last year. The Memphis Grizzlies will acquire Dwight Powell from the Dallas Mavericks for 2026 Clippers second. I have the Mavericks being a buyer and the seller at the same time. But maybe that's a three-way deal with Chicago with DeRozan. And the Bulls get maybe a pick from Memphis too. Because Memphis is going to be desperate for a center. So, that's the center I have Memphis getting. I almost picked Rob Williams, but that just felt too obvious. Miami, I have acquiring James Harden from the Philadelphia 76ers for Kyle Lowry, RJ Hampton, 2027 first, 2026 Lakers second. This is not the deal that Daryl Morey wants. He wants that Clippers deal. But I think the Heat are going to be desperate because they missed out on Dame. And getting that first-round pick is humongous because who knows if Jimmy Butler is going to be on the Heat in 2027. And who knows, maybe the Sixers are rebuilding at that point in 2027. So maybe RJ Hampton finds something. Lowry not totally washed. So maybe there's an argument. Maybe one more player goes in that deal. But I think that's the way that James Harden doesn't quit on a team. He goes to a team that really gives a shit and is very smash mouth and strict, and that's what he needs. And like I said, he are a team that always tends to hit with these kinds of things. The Minnesota Timberwolves. Rudy Gobert will be a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. I think he has a big bounce back season in the regular season. I have them in the top 5 in the West. And I think that he'll be back to being a really good double-double guy for the Timberwolves. New Orleans. I'm going to say Zion Williamson leads the team in scoring. they have 3 candidates to potentially do it. It's him, it's CJ McCollum, and obviously Brandon Ingram, but it should be Zion, and if he's healthy, he'll average over 25 a game. The New York Knicks, more than 3 players on the team average 20 points per game. Obviously, Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson will average over 20. RJ Barrett, I think, will average over 20. And the 4th player could be Josh Hart. It could be Emmanuel Quickley. It could be anybody on this team. They're so deep. Quentin Grimes. But somebody else who's average 20. Maybe it's Josh Hart off the bench. But it's certainly going to be the big 3. But that 4th player, it could be anybody. It could be Quickley. It could be Hart. It could be Grimes. I don't think it's going to be Mitchell Robinson, that's for sure. But it's going to be somebody. Or maybe they trade for somebody. And that player will average 20 a game. That's the other wild card, the trade. Oklahoma City Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will be a finalist for the MVP award this season. I love SGA. I think he's a star. And I'm going to go take it a step further. He'll finish runner-up to Jason Tatum. I feel that good about SGA this year. And in 3rd place will be Nikola Jokic because he's Nikola Jokic. And then Giannis 4th. And then 5th, Embiid because I have the Sixers double-digit over 500 in a tumultuous situation. I think they'll credit Embiid for that. So, yeah, SGA MVP finalist. Orlando Magic. Jamal Mosley will be a Coach of the Year finalist. I think that they'll see the improvement of the Magic and he'll get the credit for it. I have them in the play-in tournament this year. My pick for Coach of the Year was Mark Daigneault of the Thunder. And then the other 2 finalists, I'm going to say, one will be Mosley. And the other one is going to be Joe Mazzulla. Coming in next, the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm going to say they acquired Joe Ingles from the Orlando Magic for a 2024 Knicks second rounder. Not a bad deal. The Knicks second rounder is probably going to be in the middle. Ingles, I don't think we'll see playing time in Orlando. And I think that Ingles could be in a situation where he can thrive. It would be him and Danny Green and some other veterans off the bench. And then obviously Lowry, in theory, with the Harden trade. Or maybe it is the Clippers of Terrence Mann. But yeah, I could see Philadelphia getting Joe Ingles. The Phoenix Suns. Kevin Durant will play in less than 65 games. This is only because he's been hurt a lot lately, and I think that the Suns might do the Kawhi Paul George load management trick with him a little bit. And this is part of the Dallas Kyrie Irving thing, too. I think that they might do load management there as well. Portland will trade Malcolm Brogdon to the Toronto Raptors for Dennis Schroeder and a 2026 lottery-protected first-rounder. Malcolm Brogdon, I think, is going to be really good for Portland. And I can see Toronto wanting to upgrade over Dennis Schroeder. And Malcolm Brogdon's the perfect fit for Toronto, and then they get another first-rounder for him. Or maybe it's some bigger deal, and Time Lord Rob Williams is involved, and then maybe Jakob Poeltl goes to a third team or whatever. Sacramento. Malik Monk will average more than 15 points per game. I think he'll have the best season of his life, being the 6th man on Sacramento. I think he could very well be a finalist for this award as well. San Antonio Spurs. This will finally be it for Greg Popovich. I don't know if Pop and how long his head is in the right spot for. I think this is a year-to-year thing, kind of like Belichick with the Patriots. So I really think that the possibility of Pop retiring is not out of the question. And then they'll try to get Becky Hammon from the Aces to come back and coach the Spurs. The Toronto Raptors. There'll be rumors about the team blowing it up. But I have another blow-it-up team in the East. That's the Chicago Bulls. But they'll stand pat and make the play-in. And instead, they'll actually buy and get Malcolm Brogdon. So it's the same play as last year, except they actually make the play-in tournament. The Utah Jazz. Keontae George will be the starting point guard for more than 3/4 of the season. Or I should say 3/4 of the game he plays. But I wrote down 3/4 of the season barring injury. But we'll just say more than 3/4 of the games he plays. That's how high I'm on Keontae George, and I think Chris Dunn stinks. And last but not least, the Washington Wizards. The team will trade Kyle Kuzma to the Sacramento Kings for Harrison Barnes, Davion Mitchell, 2026 and 2028 firsts, and a 2024 second. I think that is a good deal for Kuzma. I know they always sometimes say you don't sign somebody to trade them. Well, the Phoenix Suns technically did that with DeAndre Ayton, and obviously this trade can't happen until after December because they just signed Kuzma. So I like this a lot for the Kings. And they would have him, they would have Fox, they would have Sabonis and Huter and Keegan Murray. And I think that's a really good crunch time 5 for the Sacramento Kings. All right, some Ewing theory candidates before we move on to the gambling part. Obviously, you know the drill. Bill Simmons of The Ringer made this up a long time ago when the New York Knicks made the NBA Finals without Patrick Ewing, and they played better without Patrick Ewing, and that's why the Ewing theory came about. But the Knicks lost to the San Antonio Spurs. So that's why Ewing theory has its nickname. And there's been teams where it's worked for in sports. The Washington Nationals won the World Series without Bryce Harper after he left for Philadelphia, so that worked. The Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl without Carson Wentz. So they were better without Carson Wentz. In theory, the Nationals, maybe for 1 year, were better without Bryce Harper, but the Phillies, as we know, are a win away from the World Series, so as the time we're recording this. So, yeah, it worked without Bryce Harper, but at the same time, that looks worse now. With the Wentz one, worked. The Nats with Bryce Harper was only a 1 year wonder kind of deal, but it worked that season. And then the Braves won the World Series technically without Acuna because Acuna tore his ACL, and they were better without Acuna. That one might actually work because they were first round exit with Acuna the last 2 years, so that one might work. And then there was another one that I thought about too. Was it hockey? I feel like there was one in hockey recently too. I can't think of exactly what it was. But why do I feel like it happened in hockey, of all sports? And that's like the hardest one for it to happen in a way. Well, it almost happened a couple times in hockey, but it doesn't happen in hockey a lot. I feel like it happens the most in Major League Baseball, amazingly enough. And then obviously with Wentz, with the Eagles, happened with Harper and Acuna. And then there's no really Ewing theories with the baseball teams of who's left in the postseason with the Final Four, since the Astros got Verlander back. So it didn't really happen with baseball in the Final Four. So, Ewing theory candidates this year. There's an obvious one in Boston, and that's Marcus Smart. Maybe they win a championship, and they're like, oh, well, Marcus Smart. Atlanta doesn't have any notable losses. Brooklyn, Kevin Durant, obviously. Although it's literally a different team. Chicago, Lonzo Ball. Dallas doesn't have anybody I could think of. Denver, Bruce Brown, maybe. Detroit doesn't have anybody. Neither does Houston. Indiana, no. Clippers, no. Lakers, no. Memphis, I guess, John Morant with the suspension. And then we'll see about that in those 20-something games where he's gone. Miami, obviously, Gabe Vincent and Max Strus from last year. They have 2. We're getting to an obvious one in a second. Oh, I just realized we forgot the Milwaukee Bucks in the superlative segment. I'm so sorry about that. So Milwaukee superlatives real quick. Best rookie I have Chris Livingston, most improved Margin Beecham, most disappointing Bobby Portis, make or break. Thanasis Antetokounmpo, how many chances is Giannis' brother going to get? And bounce back, I have Chris Middleton, and my bold prediction for the Bucks is that Damian Lillard has multiple game-ending buzzer beaters for the Bucks. So back to the conversation we're having about Ewing theory. Dame Jrue Holiday's kind of a wash. So Minnesota doesn't have one. The Pelicans don't have one. New York really doesn't have one either. OKC doesn't. Neither does Orlando. Philly, James Harden, obviously, once he gets traded. Phoenix, DeAndre Ayton, obviously. But here's the obvious one. Portland, Damian Lillard. What if they win 35 games and found for the play-in? I mean, unlikely, but you never know. No one on Sacramento. San Antonio, nobody either. Toronto, Fred VanVleet, that's another obvious one sitting there. Utah, there's no obvious one for the Jazz. And then Washington, Kristaps Porzingis, and obviously Bradley Beal, with the latter being the obvious one. So yeah, Ewing theory, and that's it for the superlatives. I apologize for leaving out the Bucks and realizing I left them out at the last second. Part 3 coming up, and that will be the gambling part.